Good evening, everyone. I hope you are doing well. I welcome all of you to this event being organized under the Ek Bharat Shrestha Bharat program. Topic of the event is the discussion and idea sharing on third wave of COVID-19's precautions and vaccination policy and more. Our institute PDPM IIIT Jabalpur with paired institute IIIT Dharwad is conducting the event. I wish to thank all the participants to make this event possible. Now, I would like to call Mr. Pranay Reddy to start the discussion among the joined young minds. Over to you, Pranay.
Thank you for the introduction. So good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us in. So hope you had a great day so far. So today's discussion will center around the major part with COVID third wave. So we'll be picking up from how we faced the second wave and what is leading us to a potential third wave, and to the best of our abilities, the ways we can avoid it. So we have IIIT Dharwad joining us today, and we'll be starting off our proceedings with Ashish with his starting notes. So over to you, Ashish, and we shall feel free to interrupt in between and we'll start a discussion from there. Yeah.
Thank you, Pranay. Hi, everyone. I am Ashish Dubey from IIIT Jabalpur. If we talk about the COVID-19 pandemic we have been experiencing from the past almost 2 years now, the first wave was a surprise for us. The second one exposed glaring loopholes in our public health system, and we lost a lot of lives. So now, when the third one is impending and it's here, everyone's saying it's gonna come eventually, it's high time we need to stop our weather update attitude when it comes to this third wave. At this point, I feel a lot of people have become so relaxed that they are looking at COVID statistics like it's a weather update. And I think that's going to be harmful for us in future. Like if anyone else wants to join in, yeah.
Yes. Continue on that.
Okay, thank you, Ashish. I totally agree with your point when you say that right now we are looking at the statistics as if they are weather update, because we've sort of become numb to the people dying, to the lives we are losing, and all of this. So we actually need to take everything seriously. And when we talk about anticipating the third wave, it's like we know that it's inevitable. One day or another, it's going to be here. So we really need to make sure that we are prepared to take on this huge thing, and we are prepared to deal with the infections that are going to happen. Even earlier there was this prediction that it would be worse for kids, but now it's been proved wrong. So we need to keep all of these things in mind and really prepare for whatever is going to come.
So I'd like to add a point here. Like, I want to stress on the fact that we need to evaluate how prepared are we for the third wave. Like, if we reference to the second wave, we've almost seen our healthcare system collapse. Like, there were no enough beds in a few states. There was a lot of oxygen shortage. So we didn't have oxygen. So we had to import cylinders from elsewhere. So that was one of the problems. So we've seen that governments and state governments have set up oxygen plants after that. But then we also need to check if that's able to accommodate for our population, us being the second largest population in the world. So if it could accommodate us. Also, one important point I'd like to focus is that during the second wave, we've seen it's not vaccine hoarding, but you could say medicine hoarding. So we saw a lot of activism on social media sites. So there were a lot of allegations when people were collecting the medicines and all, and they were selling them through Twitter. So I think these kind of hoarding should be kept in check, because the normal public, like if you consider the lowest to the lowest class, their access to medicines is hospitals or medical healthcare center. So when you hoard what medicines like tocilizumab and all those things, and you sell it through a social medium, so you're basically taking away the medicines from the lowest to the lowest inaccessible people, and that's kind of wrong. Like, I don't want to name them, but we had a lot of celebrities doing that over the internet. But I think so there should also be a check on that. We make sure that the medicines are accessible, not through a social medium, but then through common public and to normal discourse.
would like to add up this point. During the second wave, the one of the most biggest loophole which I saw was lack of communication between the center and the state governments. There were many instances where people started to make memes on those things. Like the state governments and center governments can't communicate. People are not focusing on it. They are focusing that they are not communicating. So maybe that's one of the loopholes, and both the government should focus on it for the third wave so that it won't arrive this time.
I think it's a different thing for different states. Like there's a statistic that says that even though India had faced the second wave in most parts of the world, in most parts of the country, sorry. So it says that 85% of the cases came from 10 states. So there's this ICMR report that states that the second wave had not hit a lot of states yet. So the major second wave that we saw was from 10 states only in India. So we have 19 different states which haven't hit that mark yet. So what we need to focus is on to what do we do, or how do I better put it? We need to delegate it to states. Like we can't have one central entity ruling us, because there's a different situation in different states. Like if we see right now, my state Telangana might have a moderate level of state, what do you call, cases right now, but then in states like Kerala and northern states, it's rising again. So one nation, one policy might not be the best approach right now, and we need to look at that. How could different states having different situations be dealt with? So that is something that we need to look at, because one nation, one policy doesn't make sense right now, because all of us are living in different situations, in different conditions.
I agree with you. Yeah, Sumit, go ahead.
I was just saying that
I'm so sorry. Like, the way Pranay just said that people are living in different conditions and everything right now, and like everyone has different things going on. So I would just like to add this point that from now onwards, I feel that we all should just be compassionate towards each other, because we really do not know like what all the person in front of you is actually been through. And so like I wanted to add this point that there's this Japanese philosophy of Gaman, like Gaman, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, but it is a philosophy of having self-discipline. And so like if we can be a bit more understanding of ourselves as well as of other situation, we might be able to get through much better through the third wave, if it does come. And then, yes, over to you.
Yeah, I agree that self-discipline is, of course, going to be the biggest thing that can keep us safe and the people around us safe. And as Pranay said, that we cannot have one nation, one policy, because we don't only have like, there are not only differences in the numbers of the people, but also there are differences, cultural differences, huge religious differences. We are a diverse country, and all of these things affect it. For example, when in Uttarakhand, I'm from Uttarakhand, so when there was Kumbh Mela, the number of cases skyrocketed. And it was right after that when we see that even the remotest villages, people in the remotest villages where they were untouched till now, they started getting infected. Because for them, Kumbh holds great importance and they will come there. If you let them, if you say, yes, you can, then they will come there. So we need to keep all of these things in mind. And especially like we have next Eid is coming up, and we have in Kerala, I just said that they have a 3-day holiday. But there is no proper lockdown for it.
They declare relaxations on lockdown rules.
Yeah. So we need to, this time, like we need to take care of our health first, rather than celebrating our religious festivals or cultural festivals.
I agree with that. On the point that Pranay said, that the center cannot govern everything when it comes to this particular issue, but then health already comes under the state board, so that is already the responsibility of the state government to take care of the health sector in their state. That does not like directly run by the government, and like what we have seen so far after the first lockdown, the nationwide lockdown, the central government also basically gave rights to the states to declare their own lockdown restrictions, their own lockdown rules. So they have been doing that so far, but I do feel that center should have some sort of command over it, some sort of responsibility and answerability. I don't think it's good that every time state makes a decision about giving relaxations based on, it can be for various reasons. I don't think it's good that the Supreme Court enters every time and says that no, this is wrong, don't do this. I think the governments should hold some sort of responsibility, and the central government also should chime in such scenarios, that the matter should not become so severe that it reaches Supreme Court.
I
I would
think
like to,
there
like,
are.
yeah,
Sure.
I think that having the Supreme Court like come into the matters is a check on the central government. If you just let it run free in any sort of a scenario, to just go wild and you'll start imposing restrictions that you might have not thought about. A Supreme Court keeps the check on certain aspects that the government can actually make rules upon. Like now there are like countries like Australia, they're having protests against lockdown because there the people are actually understanding that they have certain amounts of freedom which the state government is imposing upon them. But when certain restrictions become too severe that and you don't have a check on them, then I feel the government will just feel empowered to do whatever it wanted and just get complacent with whatever it is doing.
I think I would like to add something to what Pranay said. There is also this case where states are actually trying to, compete with other states. One state wouldn't impose opening, like wouldn't promote opening the lockdown unless some other state has already done that. Because then they want to say that, oh, it's because of this state opened up first, or they prematurely opened up the lockdown. It's because of them that the COVID cases are again rising. Which is something, again, because we consider these decisions like the public considers these decisions being taken by the central government and not the state government, and they're not much aware about it. The second thing I would like to say is, yes, there are government decisions are obviously responsible for whether we are going to have the third wave or not. But the three most important factors that I consider for the coming of the third wave would be individual choices, what we individually choose to do. Like we can see a lot of people are gathering up in tourist places, especially I'm from the north. So I have seen people in Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand going on and visiting hilltops and various other tourist locations. The second point would be vaccination coverage, how the government does that, because that can actually improve the immunity of our nation and help us stop from the Delta variant specifically, again coming up and causing the third wave. The third case, which is the most I think the most scary part of the third wave would be a rise of a new variant, which can be possible. I'm not talking about Delta Plus variant, because Delta Plus variant is less transmissible than Delta variant. But then there are some other variants like Gamma variants that have come up in other countries. And people are suggesting that there might be other variants as well, which can lead to the third wave. And that would bring our country down because we are not ready for that. And that would be something very similar to the second wave, even much more fatal if something like that happens. That's what I think.
I agree
No,
with you,
actually,
Yashaswini. Yeah, Rahul, go ahead.
So actually now the present situation is that the cases are decreasing, but we are also sure that third wave is going to come, because research has proved that there will be not an constant end for this corona. Corona will be there, but there will be a slightly decrease in the intensity of that with respect to the second. And we might also tell that it will be more likely similar to the first wave. So now the main thing is that we are sure that third wave is going to come. So now only thing we can do is we can just resist it by following some preventions. So the only thing now important is people should understand the main target is society. Government is doing its best, because day before yesterday, our PM Narendra Modi has sanctioned over approx 23,000 crore rupees to the required states to uplift their infrastructure so that we may resist the upcoming corona third wave. So government, according to me, is supporting all the required states who are asking help so that they can protect the state and prevent from the third wave. So now the whole and sole responsibility is, according to me, the people should take themselves the responsibility, and for sure next 100 to 125 days we should follow strict COVID appropriate behavior. This is must for the people. So this, according to me, will surely help, and according to also the researchers and the scientists, they have said this will and can 70 to 80% control the intensity of the third wave. So it is majorly dependent on people, according to me, not the government. Government is doing its work.
I feel like your point is
Yeah.
valid to some point, but then the thing is, we have seen our government take the impending second wave in January leniently and order like a very less amount of vaccines from the Serum Institute and other places. As a result, the health system collapsed. The second wave came out of like nowhere in everyone's eyes, even though people knew it was going to come. So right now, instead of thinking that the third wave is going to be less severe than the second one, we should be prepared for the worst. For example, like
Agree.
people at ICMR, they said that the third wave will be less severe. But then AIMS director, Dr. Andeep, he said that the third wave is going to be even more severe. And as said, what is the virus mutation?
Even I agree. There are some speculation about the third wave that may be more stronger than the second one. But that is something can't be predicted. Already it is
can't be
fresh,
predicted, right.
it can't predict it. But it is accepted that every fresh wave would be the much weaker than the previous one.
I think the institute should remain closed as the vaccination is not totally done in our country. If we will take the risk of the third wave, the strike will even be stronger, and even the Delta variant is emerging. We have seen how difficult the situation was in second wave. I personally have lost many of the relatives. So until vaccination is totally done, online should be preferred.
I totally agree with you, Sharnik, but the only point here lies is about the quality of education the students are getting right now, which is very pathetic as compared to the education we are getting through the offline mode. So here, after spending a lots of money and our parents' money, obviously, the point is, where should the quality should improve for the education.
I think
I agree with your point that quality of education should improve. But now, if we see practically above 18, there are not all have not taken the vaccination of at least one dose. So for next 100 to 125 days, when all the vaccination above 18 plus is particularly completed, then the institutes and the schools might think to get open. But at present, it is not safe according to the data which government is providing.
I would like to highlight.
But what I think is the institute should start their COVID vaccination drive, wherein they can ask the students to come to the institutes and then they can give COVID-19 vaccination. However, the vaccinations such as Pfizer, the Russian vaccination, which have less number of 13 days gap between them, that can be given to the students so that they are vaccinated completely within a short period of time.
Yeah, but the vaccination which you are telling, right, is not available in India. The government has ordered, but it is not at.
Sputnik is available in India.
It's available. It's available
in India.
Yeah,
even if
not as widely available as the other ones, but it is available.
Yeah. And
Even
what
if
was
modern
what we are
Nihar
doing-
said,
please go ahead.
what Nihar said, like the quality of education, the online mode is not that much good. Well, I see it in this way, like before the COVID, we didn't have any infrastructure for online education, right? Till 2019, till 2020, we didn't even have a single school or any classes on online mode. In this past 1.5 or 2 years, the quality of education in terms of online mode has been increased. Not too much at a very good level, but it has been increased. And maybe just because we are a developing country and these kind of things will happen. The best thing we can do is to give our best, right? And the most important thing right now is our health. As one of the person here said that he has lost some of his relatives due to COVID. Well, in my case, I have lost one of my closest family members due to COVID back in October. So I know what it can affect to the family, what it has impact on your mental health and everything. So maybe the best thing here we can do is to look for the health apart from the studies. And there are not only drawbacks of online mode, there are some of the good parts of the online mode. Like you can learn from YouTube, you have plenty of time. There is not always a fixed duration of college time. Either you can do a side work, you can do a side hustle, maybe YouTubing and everything. So I think those are some of the good points here.
I'm sorry, Vishal, we can do all of that in the campus as well. But the thing is, like, I think right now we need to be practical over here. Health obviously should be the number one priority. But if we talk about the education sector and go like asking people to come back to the particular places of education, I don't think it is impractical. I personally think it is possible. You don't need to call everyone all at once. Just like the government has allowed traveling, interstate traveling, inter-district traveling, and lifted restrictions from there, and have certain things like, okay, in some states for traveling you need the RT-PCR reports. In other states you need to show a certificate that you're fully vaccinated. So through such measures, yes, we can start opening up. We cannot call everyone all at once, but it is possible. We can do it. It is feasible.
I think we should wait for a little, man.
I'd like to
be excited about going to the institute, and we've kind of gone to the other topic of whether we should open the institutes or not. Let us come back to the third wave. And actually, one more thing that I really wanted to add here was India is a young population. Actually, the 50% population of India is under the age of 25, and in that also 41% of the population is below the age of 20, which is all of us, obviously. And the problem with opening up of institutes, I'm not just saying that it is a premature opening of the lockdown. I think that the lockdown should have been placed for some more time. It was a premature opening. And then for the institutes itself, as many people gather at one place, there are more chances of them not only getting infected with the Delta variant, but also that Delta variant getting a chance to mutate and convert into a new variant, which we are really scared about. So that's why I think opening up institute on biological standpoints should not be the major concern right now. And it's not actually a very nice step practically. If we think about the nation and not just our education, I mean, we all are suffering somewhere. Let's agree with that. But somewhere it's not the best choice our nation can make right now.
I would like to raise a question over here.
That.
If, before that one, I would like to raise a question. If tourism is allowed, why not this?
But I can answer your question. I can answer. Let me answer both of them. Let me add.
Okay. They are going on their risk.
So I'll add a point there. I wanted to address this before too. So the main problem is that we are mistaking vaccine to be the ultimate solution, but the ultimate solution is immunity. Vaccine is a tool that gives you immunity. So getting a vaccination is not equivalent to being safe from COVID. Acquiring that immunity is what gives you that standpoint that you're safe from COVID. So the main thing we're focusing right now is herd immunity, which we haven't been near yet. So once we have herd immunity, that is when we can, think of ways when we can open up slightly, but then now we can't. And addressing the travel issue, that's because that is one point I was going to raise there, because travel is a major part of economy of few states. If you consider North states, if you consider the South hill stations and all, cities like those, places like those heavily depend, the economy heavily depends on travel. That's why there is an ease of restrictions. It's not that people it's not like it's a luxury for them to open up and go there. Again, it is a risk on the traveler himself too, but then it's also an attempt to revive the economy, because we've gone through an economic lockdown through the lockdown, and we're trying to revive from that. So that's an attempt to curb that damage not to happen it further, just to improve it a bit better. So I don't think travel and education.
I think this is a short-term solution.
No. I would like to second that, because it's like the way Yashasvi did mention that the government is the imposing, the government is removing lockdowns just so that it can revive the economy, just so that it can feed its poor people. It's not that everyone is on the same strata of the society here in India where we live. that is why I feel the lockdown is getting, it's getting less stricter, and there is no more lockdown in many states, because if people are not fed, then they cannot take care of their health as well. And me coming from a tourist state, I know this because there have been many losses to people's livelihoods, and then people need food to actually be alive, and that is why I feel a certain bit of the lockdown should be eased out for people, and it's not for, like as Pranay mentioned, like for luxury of people to just go around and home. Everything, it keeps the economy running to a certain extent.
We could also compare reverse here because
like as you're saying that there has been a loss of livelihood. I personally know people, because I too come from a tourism-based state. I personally know a lot of people who are struggling a lot because they've lost their livelihood. Their livelihood was driving around tourists or hotels or something, and all of that has been shut down completely. And these people only had like a couple months to take care of their income for the rest of the year, and they're completely dependent on government benefits now. So that is why I don't think that we can really extend the lockdown indefinitely, because people will revolt in a manner if you don't open up when their livelihoods
I think we
are
can. Yeah, here I think we can go back to the initial part of the discussion that we have, that different states have different scenarios. Like someone mentioned that the second wave had major impact on 10 states. So
Yeah.
I think this lockdown situation, again, it should be the state's call, where in like the lockdown should be imposed on a certain districts, or if the situation is worse in like the entire state, that way I think it should be handled in that manner, so that people who are in like areas which are almost like free from COVID right now, there should be like ease of restrictions there. Okay, if tourism is allowed, then of course there should be some sort of check that you need to have like a vaccination report or a negative test report, which a lot of tourism states have now removed.
Yeah, like when we talk about even tests and stuff, there have been several cases of people producing fake reports that they're negative, and then when actually they're tested, they're positive. And sometimes, a lot of times, we see that tourism-based economies might not be very rich, that they have very strong health infrastructures. So when it comes to, for example, if it's a village and a person from outside comes and infects 10 people from the village, they're going to crash. The person is going to leave in like 2 or 3 days. They're there for the weekend, but now it's causing great damage to the people, the native people, and the health infrastructure of their state might not be strong enough to deal with such high numbers. So there needs to be like proper implementation when we talk about tests, because I have read several reports where fake reports were produced, and I have actually, one of my relatives is a doctor, so he has had people approach him who are just coming from outside of the state, and they're like, we just need a report. They don't ask you for the test, they just say, we need a negative report for 7 people. These are the names and ages. And that business is running.
Yeah, I think it's completely up to the individual. Like, we have a lot of individuals who are privileged enough to, travel to some place or have the privilege to, sustain for a long period of time, even without employment. But that's not the case for a lot of them, like for people who are daily wage workers, and also that's like, it's not a compulsory imposed lockdown, but it's a self lockdown where if you can afford to stay in your place for the next 20 or 120 to 150 days, so that the general public is stopping the flow, but then the people who have no other choice than to go to their work can go without the risk of like they're being in a very little population than not having any lockdown and let people go wherever they want to do whatever they do. So that kind of eases the problem.
I feel there should be a proper check in such situation. Like if you are saying that the people who absolutely need to do, or like travel or need to do this, they should be allowed. I think there should be a proper check upon this, because we cannot just leave this to their moral conscience. Okay,
now,
like okay,
wait,
if you can, then stay at home. We know the situation with
point. Like you did mention the need of need, like checking if the person has a need. Like, how would you describe what is a need and what is not a need? That also is very different for people.
For work related,
what,
I think work related tourism or travel should be allowed.
Yeah.
But in
absolute
other places,
necessity of
as I
travel
said,
is only like even when we talk about like work related travel, if we look back like 2 years ago, people, like if there was an important meeting, rather than having it, people would travel from this, say they'd fly from Delhi to Mumbai or something like that. Now we're doing it on Zoom or whatever. So when we talk about travel related work, it constitutes of a very small percentage of the total travel that happens, and the majority is not at all necessary. It's basically a luxury for people who can afford it, who still have jobs to travel. So when you talk about that, then we are actually talking about curbing travel almost completely. Especially when you talk about
I'm not just talking about the people who work in that department or are in the corporate world, that they can, okay, without travel they can just go on, hop on a Zoom call like this and do their work. When I say this, I'm also talking about the migrant worker people. Like, we know the issue we faced last year about this, so that they like constitute a very huge part of interstate travel and not tourism but travel part. So that's also like what I was including in it.
I think we need an incentive of some sort from the state governments. Like if you know this fact that the US government provided a stimulus check of $1,200 to US citizens if they had an income below one line or something of that sort. The problem with our country is that we don't really have a very good amount of financial statements of different citizens in our country because we are a very vast population. So one way we could deal with is to segregate it into different forms. Like a lot of people have ration cards and stuff like that. So if we could reach the most inaccessible people and provide them or the assurance that no, you need not travel to your home place, you could stay here. We'll provide you with a ration. We'll also provide you with a monthly allowance or whatever it is that you need to stay at that place and ensure that no one is getting infected. Then I think that would be a very good move from the government or the local government that is at the play here. And that is not happening right now. A few state governments, yes, but not at a very large scale that it actually is creating a difference. So that is one point we should focus on.
Also, I like to add upon the point of Ashish, which is like not allowing the normal people to go out for tourism. But the point here lies is the trauma the people are facing, the mental health issue, which is due to the staying at their home. So they need a kind of a refreshment for themselves. For example, like my grandma was very frustrated for the first wave, and then she had to move on. We had to move her to the village because her mentally she was mentally traumatic. That's the problem with the not allowing tourism.
As I said, I'm not asking for a travel ban. I'm saying that travel should be regulated in such a way that they should check that where the person, like, okay, if there's a state, if we talk about Himachal Pradesh, for example, people entering that state should have a check that, okay, where the tourist is coming from or where the traveler is coming from. If they're coming from a place where the COVID cases are a lot, like, okay, UP recently implemented this few days ago, right? Uttar Pradesh, if you are traveling to that state from somewhere where the COVID positivity rate is higher than 3%, you need to produce a report that you are tested negative. On the other hand, if you are going to UP from places where like COVID positivity rate is less, or you're basically from like a COVID-free district or something like that, then yeah, you can enter the state. So that's what I'm saying. That it needs to be regulated and it needs to be checked. Himachal Pradesh removed that check recently. Earlier there was a mandatory requirement of producing a negative test report. They recently removed it because the minister said that, okay, we need to promote the tourism thing. It's major source of income. But then hampering that, like hampering your health, it's like the health is put at risk. So I think there should be better regulations and check when it comes to that. Assam also recently did this thing. Earlier, Assam, they required that you need to, like, even if you present that you are fully vaccinated, you can enter the state. But now they removed that. Like once the cases even started increasing for the fully vaccinated people, they said that no, okay, you need to now produce a report like within 72 hours negativity. Only then you can enter the state. So such a way where cases are already worsening and people who are coming from places where the numbers are increasing day by day, the regulation should be there.
And even when we talk about reports, we need to like make sure that maybe we say that
They are legitimate.
reports are accepted only by the government bodies or some assigned institutes that we can actually trust that the report is legitimate.
What I would like to say is, this is just something that my dad tells me, that if it is allowed, Indians will do it. If it's not allowed, Indians will find a way to do it. So, yeah. So, this is something, the regulations that we can enforce, it really looks good on paper, or telling people that you can we'll accept these particular reports only from the trusted doctors or institutes. It looks really nice on paper, but when we talk about the real life implementation, the main basis that comes in is the mentality of people towards it. How people are taking in COVID and how they are taking in what effects the COVID-19 third wave can have on their life and their health as well. So something that we really need to change is how people look towards it. We can obviously implement the regulations, everything that we want to do for like whatever the resources we have, we can put it in, but then people would find a loophole and they'll try to, manipulate people to get what they want. So something that we really want to do is explain it to people and let them become aware about how this is actually something that we need to take in seriously, because after the second wave, people have kind of thought of like there are many views. People might say, okay, it's not about immunity, it's not about vaccination. People who are destined to die by COVID will die. So some people have started thinking like that. This is what we actually want to change, and we need to change. Only after then these regulations will work, especially with a country like India.
Yeah, that is one of the point. But yeah, the government can implement the lockdown, and also it can uplift the lockdown. That is not the problem. The problem is how the people themselves, they should take care. They should be consciously aware that the situation around is not that stable to take their family on a trip and such a place where the huge crowd has come at a time. And another point with respect to tourists is that allowing tourism is not a problem, but there should be a limit in for the number of people, so that can even more properly it can what we call is tourism can be enjoyed. And secondly, one point was raised here that the people who work and earn by the tourism, they are suffering losses, so the tourism should be continued. So for this point, I would like to tell that the state government and at the ground level, the local should look after them, and they can provide the support. So that can be one of the steps. And now actually we need not continue this situation for next not more number of days. Only next 100 to 125 days are more important. As research says, if we control the people,
only 100 to 120 days are important.
Yeah, if this is controlled and people, if they just patiently, if they follow the COVID appropriate behavior, then the possibility of third wave is not actually more. Then after that, within some 2 to 3 months, we can almost not actually stable, but we can come on a normal phase, and then at that time we can slowly remove the lockdowns, and then the process can be slowly and easily. We can allow all the things to get open, and the people can then enjoy the tourism.
So but like we can't leave this to the judgment of the people population, because most of the population of India is probably ignorant. So if they would have done it, they would have done it till now. So like government should incentivize them in some ways. Like I was checking out USA, so they incentivize the to increase the vaccination by saying that if you get vaccinated, then you can travel interstate and all. So like similar, we can create incentive policies so that they don't go out for the next 100 days, because if you leave it up to the people, they probably won't follow it. it's only 100 days, right?
Yeah.
Around 100 to 200 days. So government should take control here.
I agree with you, Gaurav. Like Yashaswini also just mentioned, right? If there is a way to, like, if it's not allowed, then people will find loopholes. People will find some way to do it.
Yeah,
So,
right now.
So if the situation is for the next few days, we should, I think, implement the level of strictness that we tried to implement before the first wave, during the first lockdown. Like I see, when the cases were like 300, that time the police was constantly beating up people who were traveling around for no reason in places like where the cases were beginning to be discovered. So I think some sort of strictness should be implemented, especially in the areas where the cases are still increasing and not decreasing day by day. Like there are some places that have, like states like Kerala and the Northeast, they never recovered from the second wave. They are still going through it, and the cases have started increasing again. So if it's a matter of just a few days, I think the strictness should be there. Of course, we can constantly ask people. We have been doing that. We have been asking people to stay at home, to, like, do their part in this pandemic. Like you call someone, there's a person telling you that.
Just ask them to do it. There are two ways to incentivize them. Like we can implement laws. Like there is lockdown, so someone said that if there is a law, then people will find a way to move around that law and get their way. But there is another way of incentive, that is you use a stick and a carrot, that you give them something in return of that, so they'll internally be motivated to follow that thing, right? If you use law to promote people staying inside, they'll probably find a different way, like somebody is making fake reports and all. But if you use like aspects of game theory and all, so like you use psychology to drive those incentives, I think it will be more effective now.
I like your ideas, but then a country with 1 billion people there, it doesn't scale well.
No, I think that is practically a nice point, because it's like you have this Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, for example. Like before that, like people didn't have this mentality that you could just you could have a country that could be cleaner. But with the launch of an initiative like the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, we could make the country a lot more clean, and at least everyone had that thing in their minds that no, they do not have to throw this chocolate wrappers.
Like everybody wants this lockdown to get over, right? Everybody wants to go to college and all. So if we use this motive to drive them to stay indoors, maybe it will be more effective. Then
I do like the point of
college people don't constitute the majority of the Indian population, right?
No, college is just a metaphor. Like
I don't think no one section constitutes the majority, but like it is also an important part of the education sector. But okay, I do like the point of using methods like games or like campaigns to do this, because okay, the thing with Swachh Bharat Abhiyan was there when it initially started, it was like, okay, major celebrities or major like public faces, they were nominated through a chain to promote this. Like they went out to the streets, they cleaned, they showed that okay, yeah, do this. So if we do launch like that level of campaign, it should be reflected that way, which we know it's not going to happen. The elections are coming in a few days. It won't be.
No, I think so. There should always be someone to take action for that.
I think we've had already
for initiative. 3 to 4 slogans. Like without any action at all, then it'll just be, there wouldn't be anything. We wouldn't know about it. Like hadn't Greta Thunberg stood on that corner for like every single Friday, we would have
it
not
should
known
be promoted more. Yes, it should be promoted more. I do agree with that. But like we already have slogans and all. Recently, when on 16th, I believe, meetings with all the chief ministers of the states. So again, he gave the nara of test, track, treat,
it's
and
not about slogans.
Like he added the word
initiative.
We have been doing that for past.
It's not about slogans at all. Like as Yashaswini did mention, if you impose law on people, they'll find a way to break it. But if you impose initiatives, like if you provide them with an initiative or an option, they might actually choose to opt in.
Exactly.
I think we're looking at two different situations here. Like I understand that this can be related, like people can be bought by games and all, but then Swachh Bharat Abhiyan was a luxury or was completely optional to the person. This is completely necessary for the existence of the person. You can't equate both of them because one is completely up to you, one is completely optional, but this, your livelihood or your life depends on it. So yeah, see, ultimately it's a free country. Everyone has the right to their whatever, live to behave in their own way unless it's within the legal limits. But the stricter rules will only make people to revolt against you, or mark you as an anarchy or something of that sort. The thing you need to do
That's
is
why I
you
suggested that it should be
the
limited in a way.
regulations. The regulations should be made stricter. Like you leave the choice to the people, but then when people break a law, you make the law so stringent that it just it makes the person think twice before actually trying to
Yeah, like what they
do
have been
things
doing
like
with the
getting
traffic
a
rules
certificate.
recently. Yeah, like what it's similar to what they have been doing with the traffic rules recently. Like earlier, if we talk about few years ago, you break a traffic light signal, you cross it, it's like minimal fee, it's negligible to a lot, like a big portion of the society. They have been increasing it over the years. They have been making the traffic rules stricter. So like the cameras are there everywhere, you get tickets and all. So I do agree with Pranay's point that
However, Ashish, the point here is the time period in which this transition has happened. Here, when we talk about COVID, there's a lot of less time period for the government to think upon and think about the actions to be done. While on the traffic case, it has been continuously tested and implemented over years to get that point of reduction.
Well, but then you live and you
that's-
learn, right?
Yeah.
Like when first wave happened,
exactly. My point
examples from like what happened there and then implement it accordingly, which we did not do to that extent, and then the second wave happened. So I think it's high time that
here
we should start doing it at least.
Yeah,
now
here
actually
the thing is, it's the emergency of the people to implement and of the government to implement and test the actions what they have done.
Right, because like if you talk about the third, people are saying that we need to take care for the next 100 to 150 days. Okay, fine, but we all know that COVID won't go away, and like what if the virus mutates? There's another variant. What if there's a whole new virus that emerges? You never know. We need to be prepared. Like this whole COVID situation should be a learning lesson that okay, if all things happen, how they should be tackled, rather than thinking of just the next few days. Like it's high time that we start implementing long-term approaches when it comes to these things.
Yeah, I agree to that point,
Exactly.
but anything can happen. Future is unpredictable. So another thing is that we can also be not acquired with unlimited things. We can just now government also can just do one thing is that it can just build and there is a limit to build the infrastructure with respect to hospital or number of. So we can't get unlimited beds or unlimited hospitals. So there is also a limit for that. So instead of focusing on that point, what we can focus on is the ground basis where from the COVID is increasing now. So now actually the point is the rural areas and the areas which are not where the people are not actually properly provided, or they are far from the urban areas where they are not in touch with all these news that is going across India. So they're just around themselves what is going on, and they're just focused on that thing. So according to me, the reason for the second wave was that the rural people and those people who don't have proper facilities of hospitals, so they were the people who were more susceptible for this virus, and that affected indirectly all the people who were living in the urban areas or the major cities. So now as the vaccination has been over, so now the major problem is for this third wave, the children, because below 18, the children, they are not been vaccinated, and now only that is the those are only the people who are more prone to the corona or the infections. So now more focus should be done on the children. According to me, the government should focus.
I agree on this point. I think we should talk about this point. Like when we talk about the first wave, if we talk about the initial days of the pandemic, the main age group of concern was the older people, the senior citizens, and they were getting affected a lot. But then when we see the trend, like when we paid attention to them, we see the trend with the second wave, a lot of younger generations started getting affected. So what if the next age group of attack is going to be the children?
Yeah, I think it's a high time even government thing.
That is one of the important thing now, because
we need
above
to
18
think about the children, and also we don't even have enough vaccines for above 18 people yet. We
Right.
talk about opening
Yeah.
things, but the majority of our population, 18 to 44, is a huge chunk of our population that hasn't been vaccinated yet. So we
Yeah,
also
I
need
think
to
it's a
take
high
care
time
of
government
that.
should imply some strong measurement toward toward the third wave, as the third wave could be more deadly. I personally
Yeah.
feel that the government should imply where and where to ease the lockdown. And the second one
Like if you
is to
talk
keep pushing
yeah.
ahead with the vaccine program in the term of providing
Exactly.
more
Like
and
if you
more
talk about the
vaccine.
vaccination
Then
program and the
again,
steps should be taken there, I do want to take everyone's point of view also on this. I personally feel that the second shot should be given a lot more priority than it is being given now. Like whenever there's a major vaccination drive, as we witnessed on the 21st of June, for example, that okay, a record like millions of people got vaccinated on that day. Okay, but then that was the first shot. Right now, if you talk about the first shot, 23.6% of the population got vaccinated. Okay, but then first shot is there, you do need the second shot as well. That is only 6.1%. So priority
exactly, but
was given a lot to numbers and to figures to get people getting the first shot. I think it's high time we start prioritizing the second one.
No,
Yes.
but
then
that
again, when we
also
to
there
talk
comes
about
the point.
vaccination,
So yeah,
when we talk
I'd
about
like to
vaccination
interrupt
as
here.
yeah, as
Yeah,
yes, sure. No, as you said earlier, that vaccination is not the ultimate solution. No, it's not like even if I have both the shots, I'll not get COVID. I'm just COVID free. I can do whatever I want. That's not the solution. So no matter how much we talk about this, the thing is that for every single person, I would say the case would be different. Self-discipline, government restrictions, and everything need to be taken care of for every
It
single
should be an
person.
amalgamation of all these
Yeah.
factors. I do agree. Yeah.
Exactly.
Self-discipline is there, but the first thing is that vaccine is must. Because if you follow self-discipline and if you ignore the vaccine, then that is also not the case.
I mean, sure,
Because
prevention is better than
Yeah.
cure. That is
vaccine is such
One
that
more
it will
thing.
help. Actually, that is the
Like
basis.
we are among one of the biggest producers of vaccine, but back in February and March, more than 50% of the vaccine was been exported. It was not staying in India, and maybe that was one of the biggest reasons the second wave happened. Whereas looking at the USA, they stopped the raw material supply, and the reason they gave us that they want to focus on their country's vaccination program. So I think that's one of the things which we can learn in future. And we have been very good friends to other countries. We are providing ventilators, we're providing beds. But what happened back in April and May, when we see that, we feel like maybe we should first focus on what's happening at our own house and then try to help the other people.
I think there's more to that picture.
Yeah.
Like we had diplomatic relations with different countries. We don't really have the raw material like you mentioned. We import it from different countries. So I think there's a larger picture at play. Like diplomatic relations and health discussions can't be combined, because those were two different things. And I think that might be one of the reasons why we sent out a bunch or a portion of our vaccines to different countries. Also, I'd like to mention that it's 6:55. So we are almost ending the session. So I'd like to move towards how would the life post-COVID be if we were to consider that third might be the last one, or third might be the last one, that we might not be having this intense outbreak. So anyone on that point? Life after.
See, I would like to tell. So actually now that COVID third wave is not the final wave. That is for sure, because no, it is not going to stop like a full stop. Now third wave, the intensity might be anyhow, but third wave is for sure. Means there will be going, the number of cases might increase for some with respect to now, and again there will be decrease, and the graph mostly it will go on decreasing. Like the curves, the surge will be upward and then downward, then again next upward, but the next upward will be slightly lower than the before. So according to me, there will be an end, but it will be in a zigzag way. So it might extend, the end might be so long and it may be extended, and for that we should be the only one solution is that from now the people should be aware of themselves. They should just understand what is the situation by themselves. That there is a news channels and all the people see news, but the problem is they don't implement. So the only solution is people they take vaccination, just remain safe. If they want to go out, they can move, but on their own responsibility, and just maintaining the distance and wearing masks. and be safe as they can. So that is the only solution.
Something I
What-
would like to say about post-COVID is I think many people are not aware about it and we don't talk about it, thanks to the Chinese diplomacy, is the gain of function experiment. Now, gain of function experiment is a biological experiment that sees how we can make a virus more transmissible and mutable. And the Chinese government, these are down in the international data records available because the Chinese institutions are funded by US and UK. So there is an international database where this is available. So Chinese government, especially the Biological Institute of Wuhan City, was doing the gain of function experiment on the bad coronavirus, which and how it can directly infect the human ACE2 receptor, which is a lung receptor that we have. So they were trying to see how it can directly affect our lungs and how it can become more transmittable and mutable. So I think post-COVID, we should really focus on this and how we should restrict gain of function, because in gain of function, the virus is not supposed to be replicating. It's not supposed to be. It's not like it cannot be. So there is this hypothesis that maybe there was a test leak or it is a biological, war that the China started, something that they wanted to do. So I think we should focus on such important topics and how the advancements of such experiments and researches can lead to fatal events like the COVID-19 pandemic itself. I think that is something we should actually discuss about internationally when it comes to experiments like the gain of function itself. So I would like to know what you guys think about this.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
I would like
once
to
again, I would
add-
like to reiterate the same thing, that we need to start thinking about long-term solutions and long-term situations and scenarios. Like if we talk about post-COVID, we should take in like lessons from the previous outbreaks that we had in our country or throughout the world, how they were tackled. Like other viruses also exist, but
Yeah.
why they are not a pandemic, or if they ever were, then what happened to them that they are like restricted now. If we talk about like, okay, if we talk about polio, just an example, I know like it's nowhere to be compared with this, but then still that was through constant rise, through long-term situations, vaccinations and things. It like, okay, it came to an end for the time being, right? So if we talk about other viruses, we see the case with Zika virus. Almost every year you see a couple cases spike up in certain regions, but then they are restricted, they are limited. So when it comes to this particular virus, long-term researches and medical facilities should be developed. They should be like be center of focus, that okay, how in future, like when the like multiple waves have come, and how they should be decreased, how basically, if you talk about the common flu, that is also virus, that is also like influenza basically. So how the effects are reduced, what should be new medications, long-term researchers should be now the focus, I feel.
Again,
Yeah,
when
actually,
we talk
now
about this, like COVID is going to be a part of our life now. It's not going anywhere. But what
Yeah.
I think Yashasvi was talking about is how we restrict the use of science, like the people researching, and what she meant was how we make sure that the word is safe from whatever we are researching, just because we are trying to find answers or maybe cause damage. Whatever we are doing, we need to make sure that there are ways to protect ourselves from it.
Yeah, for this I would like to support
Yeah,
now.
Rahul, yeah, just a minute. So yeah, so we'll move on to speakers who haven't talked today yet. So we have Shreya, I guess we haven't heard yet, and we also have Ruchira and Utkarsh who joined us. So let's hear their points and let's move towards a conclusion. So we're almost
Okay.
towards. So yeah, let's hear them, the speakers who haven't spoken yet, and we'll try to form a conclusion based on our facts that we've talked.
Okay.
So yeah, Shreya and Ruchira.
I think I heard all of your points, and I got to learn a lot because after the second wave, I was not very active in updating myself with all the COVID news. But yes, I do agree with some of the points that you guys have discussed about how long-term plans have to be devised, because such pandemics are I believe such pandemics are going to become a part of our lives in the coming years. and the people because during these COVID waves, we all we lost people, and we've been through a lot mentally and physically, and it's important that people realize that such things are only going to be a common thing in our lives, and we need to be prepared, and the government has to make sure that all the necessary infrastructures are there so that we'll be able to deal with these things.
Yeah, that makes sense. So we have Shira and Utkarsh too. So if you want to add a few points, we can start forming a conclusion to it.
I could add one thing when you guys were talking about how test reports and this thing was getting forged, right? States, we have seen that. So what you can do is, so the COVID, the certificate you get after getting your first vaccine, that has some initials and that has a QR which can be verified anywhere, right? Which is not standardized for the tests. So each place, each lab, they have their own numbers. There's no standard code, or there is some, something which is universal. So maybe something that could be something like that can be implemented. So there would be fewer cases where reports are forged.
I would like to add here is a collaborative effort between state government and the central government for the vaccination would be really helpful, because here currently in Mumbai, all over Maharashtra, I would say, the vaccines available to the government hospitals are in hundreds, not more than 500. But the bigger hospitals like Apollo, Fortis, Hiranandani, they are having vaccination drives of almost 1,500 to 2,000 per day. I don't know what's causing the government to not get the vaccines. I'm seeing people lining up from morning 4 a.m. for a single vaccine doses.
Yeah, I think they come under corporate collaborations. Like we have a lot of software companies who directly have collaborations with different medical labs who can directly import vaccines and provide it to their employees. So I think that's one of the good moves that the companies are making. But then the main problem arises when the most inaccessible people, or the people who are the daily wage workers, it doesn't reach them. It reaches people who have a steady job, or people who are working in MNCs with their companies having collaborations. So that in a way would speed up the vaccinations, because you're having two different streams where one is completely private based and one is completely government based. That would speed up. But then we need to also focus on the marginal crowd, or the crowd which
even though like only 25% of the vaccine was supplied to the private sectors, like private clinics. When the government allotted initially, only 25% was allotted, but still it is found that it's more easy to get vaccine in private clinics as compared to the government.
Moreover, the whole vaccination drive seems it seems very unequal in a manner that we can get vaccinated in private places or whatever. Even the registration process, which is completely online, and when we see the slots that get filled in seconds, a daily wage worker or a person who is not good with technology just cannot book a slot for themselves, even if the vaccine is available.
There are drives which are offline, right? There are hospitals, there are government hospitals, where you can directly go and register yourself.
But the awareness is an issue.
The biggest issue then again, someone was saying that people are lining up for vaccine since 4 a.m. Now we don't line up because we book a slot. I know I have to go at 11 a.m. So I'll just sit in my car, reach there at 11 and come back in 20 minutes because I know this is my slot. But then again, this is quite very unequal for people who are not so good with technology.
Yeah, that is what the remote places and the people in villages, there should be more, the care should be taken more in that. The locals, who look after, they should look after them, and they should properly manage the crowd. So that is the main point.
Yeah, for example, like if you talk about the COVID portal itself, for the first few days, it was only in English.
Yeah.
Which is like still not a huge population of the country. Later on, okay, it got available to more languages, but then it launched off as only an English app.
Yeah, it was launched, but actually now after the 21st June, the online registration is not required. Actually, you can directly go and you can take the vaccines. So that is not the major
The problem is not that the online registration is not required, as Aparna said, that it's not
the
the problem.
awareness.
Like, people can go and they can get vaccinated. That's easy. But understand, if you are a daily wage worker, I'm just asking you to assume, you are losing your 1 day wage, which is basically what's going to pay for that night's dinner. So would you like to skip your dinner to get go and stand in the sun and get vaccinated? I think not.
And even
So that
then,
is
you're
something
not sure if you will get the
Exactly. There's no guarantee.
And then also you have no surety about it. So that's the problem for them. I think online vaccination, we can have delay there because we know how to work with technology. We can wait there. But for people who cannot book the slot online and have to go offline, for them, we must make sure that they get it whenever they have the slot, like they get it right then and there on that day, and they don't have to wait for long. So I think that is something that should be priority of the government.
Yes, at least like there can people be told like whenever you go there, you can be told, okay, now the next, I think you will get the vaccine 2 weeks from now. So don't worry about staying today or don't worry about coming every day. Just come from on this date and this is the date that we guarantee you will get the vaccine.
Or else the local the bodies, what they can do is they can just select the zones. Zone wise, they can give the vaccinations. Means there will be, we call that nagar, means one particular zone. If we take, then they can what? Yeah, sorry.
This is something similar to the polio case.
Exactly, right.
It will help in proper and maintaining the discipline also, and all the people can get the vaccines and without any wastage of time. The people also are helped and government also properly it manages, and vaccination process has been taken very easily. So not at all places, but in urban areas and below urban areas, like in remote villages, this can be followed. Because in major cities, people are learned and they themselves can manage themselves. And they
that
can
too, especially with the newer researches and newer vaccines that are being developed. Like recently, I saw one of the vaccines, they are developing it in such a way that it's stable in warmer conditions as well, and they don't require super cool refrigerators for storage and all.
So yeah,
Okay.
those were really valuable points.
There was this. Hello. Yeah, I just wanted to mention this point over there. Like, I don't know if you're aware of Odisha. In Odisha, I think the state government had this plan where they gave out a few tokens to its MLAs, and then the people could just reach out to the MLAs and they could get the vaccination tokens and they could get vaccinated quickly. So I just thought I could mention it over here.
So we're out of time. So let's just conclude this by concluding with one point from each member. So starting with Yashashvi. So what would your conclusion of the whole situation and our plan ahead would be?
I would say that third wave is inevitable. We should make sure that we do not gather and we individually follow protocols. Also, there should be a balance of the regulations that the government can put as well. And then once the COVID is over, the researches that are going on and that are being funded internationally, we should really look on them like the gain of function experiment I talked about. These are something really important that the mass public is not aware about. They don't even speak about them. And this is something we should obviously take a step on internationally as global citizens.
So moving on to Vishal. What would your conclusion?
Yeah, so one of my concluding points would be the drive which we had on 21st June and other days where we have reported many vaccines. Maybe that kind of thing we should do more often. Along with that, there is also a stat that at least around 60% people, 60% of population should get at least first dose. At that point, we can at least say that the chances of third wave or the fourth wave would be less. But before then saying that the third wave is inevitable, third wave is not coming is not true. So I think at least 60% population should at least get a single dose.
Okay, so moving on to Sumit.
Okay, yes. I do think that the third wave would be inevitable, but having greater control on your own self and being self-disciplined enough, and taking an initiative, just helping people around can do a lot good for all of us.
Yeah, moving on to Shreya.
I think I agree with Sumit because self-discipline plays a major role in this, and also the government has a bigger responsibility here in anticipating future pandemics like this or any other, like Yashashvi mentioned, biological warfare. So long-term plans have to be devised for that. Along with those, even short-term plans need to be devised that can be implemented quickly and effectively.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, moving on to Roshni.
Yeah, having failed to adequately prepare for the second wave, Principal Scientific Authority K. Vijay Raghavan calling the third wave inevitable by he adding up saying that the third wave could be avoided if taking strong measures. So I totally agree to his sentence. Even for that, there's some local administrator and some hospital already began ramping up the infrastructure in participation of the fresh search in the cases in the last months.
Yeah, so yeah, moving on to Nihar.
Yeah, I'd like to conclude upon the point that the institutions, that is the educational institutes, to start the vaccination drives for the students with using the short-term vaccines such as Sputnik, etc.
Yeah. So moving on to Gaurav.
Yeah, like I would like to say that the government should develop and optimize the incentive systems so that it can contain this pandemic and future such pandemics at this scale, because it's gonna happen in the future.
Yeah, moving on to Rahul.
Yeah, so the government, particularly now, the state government should look after their graphs, which they have been seeing the effects of the coronavirus from the last 1.5 year, and particularly they should take the decision based on that, because now the third wave, what we are speaking is of a nationwide. The third wave will come if there is a rise in all the states at a particular time. So instead of that, if particular states look after their own data which has been made in second wave and before second wave, and if they take necessary steps on that basis, and also the study which the researchers and scientists they are doing, so combinedly if the government take the steps based on these two, then also if people are made aware, then according to me the COVID it can, the intensity all we can not 100% but 60 to 70% we can decrease. Means the death or mortality rate will be decreased. That's all.
Yeah. Moving on to Ashish.
Yeah, I would like to conclude with the point that I raised initially. We need to stop the weather update attitude when it comes to not only the third wave, but like possible future waves as well, or some other health crisis that we might face in the future. Then yeah, more focus should be paid on long-term solution and medical researches and better regulations, as well as instead of looking at the whole country as a whole, we need to give special attention to areas that are more affected as compared to the ones that have recovered completely right now. Thank you.
Yeah, moving on to Aparna.
As we all know that the third wave is actually, I'd say, inevitable. And so we need to make sure that we prepare for it, we have proper infrastructure, and whatever measures we take them keeping in mind the whole population and not just, as I said, there's been vaccine inequality and stuff like that. We need to address that moving forward. And we also need to make sure that our health infrastructure is strong enough for any future such issues.
So yeah, moving on to Ruchira and then Utkarsh, and then we'll be wrapping up the session.
I would just like to say there needs to be more vaccine drives. So people are vaccinated, at least the first dose. and people need to understand this is like a two-way it's a two-way lane. The government needs to put more restriction. They need to they need to give benefits. They need to make laws which actually entice the population to get the vaccine. At the same time, uh, the larger population needs to understand that being uh, so reckless to let so many waves in, it's not gonna do good for anybody.
Yeah, finally, Utkarsh.
I would like to just conclude that all the people from all the classes should get the privilege of having vaccines, because we, the educated people, will definitely get a way to get the vaccine, like a private hospitals or any other institutions. But the daily wages worker are one who are actually going out of the house to earn their living. So it would be beneficial if they are given some kind of priority or uh, from the government, so the spread of virus would be limited to some extent.
Yeah, so thank you guys for the enlightening session. So this session was only possible because of our faculty members who are present with us today. So that is Dr. Harpreet Singh and Dr. Kusum Kumari Bharti. So yeah, I'd like to hand it over to them to conclude the session.
Pranay, I'm audible?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
Okay. So thank you each one of you for taking part in this. So first, I would like to start my thank with our Prime Minister. So basically, with because of him only, we are able to come at the common place, and we are able to have a discussion about this COVID topic. Now, next, I would like to thank our institute director, Professor Sanjeev Kumar Jain. Because of him only, we are able to conduct such kind of the events at our institute level and even in the broader aspects also. Next, I would like to thank our faculty members, Dr. Harpreet Singh and from IIIT DMJ, and Dr. Pawan Kumar from IIIT Dharwad. Now, I would like to thank student coordinator from IIIT DMJ. So from our side, Mr. Pranay Reddy was the coordinator and his teammate, and in his team, we are having Mr. Ashish, Mr. Sumesh, Ms. Roshni, Vishal, and Rahul was there. And in from IIIT Dharwad side, we are having Aparna, Gaurav, Nihar, Shreya, and Yashasvi. Thank you each one of you for basically organizing all this event, formalizing this event, and all of the participants. Because of them only, we are having such kind of the interactive session. So yes, some of the important point you all have mentioned, like the rules and regulation, yes, it is there, but yes, means as a good citizen we need to make it a habit so that there should be no violation. And it should not be the case like we can only go with the vaccination or we can go with the following the rules. It should be the integration of the both. If we are just having the vaccination, not following the rules, even in that case also not it's going to work. And if we are just having the rules and we are not having the vaccination, so even in that case it is not going to work. It should be the integration of both the sides. So yes, it's our responsibility to make it happen. And it's not about the just this kind of the situation. Yes, in the future we are possibly we will have such, not exactly, but yes, possibly we will have such kind of this situation. So the precaution is going to be the basic measure. So we need to make this hygiene habit, means we need to make a good practice like the means this following the hygiene habits, so that we need to integrate all these things in our daily routine. So that way only we are going to tackle such kind of the problem also in near future. So thank you each one of you for placing all your point very beautifully. And we are also able to learn, means what are the things are happening in different part of the country, and we are able to discuss all these pros and cons here. So thank you so much. So now I would request everyone, please put on your camera so that we can have a commemorative photograph. If you are able to, okay. So I'm going to take a Yes, I have taken. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you everyone. All of you have done fabulous job. It is really a fruitful discussion. I am very happy to see you all in this event. I think such interactions are much needed apart from your studies and ambitions. However, such interactions are, because the numbers are less, but we will try. We will try to enlarge it, okay, so that we will interact again. Okay, thank you very much once again and good luck.
Thank you.
I'm going to end the meeting now. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.